All right, so we have used loops to rename files, and that's really useful. Let's see what else we can use loops to do. So here is a little script that I've written, and I have linked to it from the course website. And this script just uses a loop that is very, very similar to the one that we used in the last video to rename files, and it just does some different things with the same sort of loop. So to see what this script does, let's just copy the code, and we can paste it here into Canopy and take a look at it and see what it does. So the idea with this script is very, very simple. It just takes one of these files here from the childless database. We've already looked at Adam, and as we've seen, these scripts or these transcripts have a lot of information in them, and we might want to do different things with this information. One thing we might want to do is to just see what it is that they actually say. So get rid of all the morpheme encoding and the metadata, all that, and just see what it is that the participants in the conversation say. And maybe we only want to focus on what the child says, or maybe only the mother. Maybe we want to look at the child and the mother. So this script just selects all the child utterances and all the mother utterances. And because it's a loop, it will do that for all of the files in the folder. So let's take a look at some of the elements of this script. A lot of it, in fact, almost all of it we've already seen. These two modules we used in the last video to do operating system and file management operations. And we have also seen this change directory command before. Here's a new one. What's very simple. This is just make directory. So this allows us to make a new folder from Python. So we don't have to go and create the folder ourselves manually. We can just ask Python to make a new folder for us. Moving on a little bit down here, we've seen this before. So as you know, this just goes to whatever folder you have pointed Python at in this line up here, and says look through that folder, take every file that ends in txt, and in the last video we changed all of our files to end in txt. Then open that file, read the contents of that file. This is all familiar to you by now. Do some things to clean that up, so get rid of the maybe split the file contents into lines, replace some of these elements that we don't need. Tab for instance. And then this one here, strip, this is to get rid of some of the punctuation marks that are at the end of some of the utterances. Actually, for this script it doesn't really matter, but for other things we might want to take those out. So here they are. Here's that command in here. So far everything should be very familiar to you. This part down here is a little bit new, but it is very, very simple, and it shouldn't be a problem at all. So this element, for instance, you have already seen. You know that for indicates that we're going to build a loop here. We're going to step through some items. In this case, the items, here I'm calling them S, but it doesn't really matter. It's just saying step through all the items in clean list. And clean list, because up here you have split it into, split it by lines. Clean list is a list of all the different lines of text in the transcript. So step through every line of text in the transcript in clean list. Then here is another loop, another statement, an if statement that is embedded in this loop. For every line in clean list, take a look and see if that line begins with either *MOT, indicating that it's the mother speaking, or *CHI, indicating that it's this child speaking. So far, so good. Then the last part of this little loop here says that if this is the case, if it's true that that line begins with either MOT or CHI, indicating that it is an utterance spoken by either one of these two people, then just take that line and stick it into this new variable here called utterances. And utterances we have defined already up here beforehand. We're going to need to do that, but in this case it starts out empty. We just say, okay, there's going to be a variable here called utterances. It's just going to be a little bucket that collects utterances as you go through all the elements, all the lines in this transcript and apply this rule. So just to make sure that it's perfectly clear what it is we're doing here, if we go to a transcript, we can go to Adam 01. We're just telling it, look through all these lines and check to see if it starts with star CHI. So first line, nope, it doesn't. Nope, it doesn't. It's going through all these lines. It's saying, not interested, not interested, not interested, not interested, not interested. Then it gets to this one and it says, ah, yes, it does begin with star CHI. I'm going to put that in utterances. This one, not interesting. No, no. Ah, here we have another one that is star CHI, and so on and so forth. It's going to ignore these ones here, but when it gets to this line, it will say, ah, yes, that meets one of those two criteria that I've set up. It says star MOT. I'm going to stick this line in utterances. Now, you will have probably already noticed that here I have made a little slice. So I'm saying put S, which is, in this case, S is one of these lines. It might be this one right here. And I'm saying put S, this line, in utterances, but don't give me all of S. Just give me from character 1, which is actually the second character, because remember Python starts counting at 0. So go from the first, which is actually the second character, all the way to the end of the list. Why do I do this? Well, it doesn't really matter, but I just think it will look nicer if it just says MOT instead of star MOT. So this slice here is just an aesthetic choice on my part. You could ask it to replace that with some other text. You could ask it to write child and mother instead of CHI and MOT. You could do lots of different things. You could also just leave it at S. So let's start putting this script into action. The first thing we're going to need to do is to define this path in here. It needs to know where to find the files. So again, depending on your computer, you're going to do this in different ways, but this is one easy way to do it on the Mac. So there is the folder that the files are going to be found in. And then we're also going to want to tell it where to put the output files. And let's just put those on the desktop as well. But instead of Adam, let's make a new folder here called Adam Cleaned using make directory. Now, rather than just running the script right away, just to see what it is that's going on in what we've done so far, I'm just going to comment out a few of these lines here, because this is where we've gotten to so far. So let's just add a line here that says print utterances. We'll run it and see what we get. And it looks something like this. So it's still working here. It's got a lot of files to go through. 54, 55 files to chew its way through. But as you can see, what it ends up with is a list of all these different lines of utterances. It's doing exactly what we wanted. It's picking out child speech, it's picking out mother speech, and it's not getting anything else in there. So that's good, but we would like our output to look a little bit neater than this. This isn't easy to read, and the whole point of making the script is to make the transcript easier to read. So let's see what we can do to fix that up. The next line in this script is this one right here. new text. So what we're doing here is we're making a new variable here now, new text. And new text is going to take each one of these utterances here, and it's going to join them together, and it's going to add a line break after each one. So that is going to make a nicer looking file for us for our output. So just one more word on join. Join here is doing essentially the opposite of split up here, right? So we started off with this text, which was the whole transcript that got read in, and then we used this text.split with the delimiter line break in order to split the transcript into lines. So now we got this variable lines, which we then called clean list because we were going to start cleaning things in it, and it was a list of lines from the transcript. Now that we've done everything that we wanted to do, now we want to join those things back together again. So join is just going to do the opposite. It's going to take everything in utterances here, everything in this variable, and it's going to join them back together again. And here, before the dot join, you tell it what you want to stick in between all of these, essentially. So you could put lots of different things here. You might want to put nothing there. You could put a comma there. You could put a tab delimiter there. In this case, we're going to put a line break. And the reason for putting in a new line delimiter here is just because we want each one of our utterances to appear on a new line in the final output, just like it did in the original transcript. So let's go ahead and uncomment the rest of the script here. This part here should look fairly familiar to you, but let's go through it so you can see what it does. Now we're saying to open up a new file, and notice that this is actually a new file. Not because I've called it that here, but just to point this out, up here we're opening an existing file, right? We can use this open command to open a file which Python has gotten by looking through the directory, by looking through the folder and picking out each file one at a time. So these are existing files that we're opening. But you can also use the open command to create a new file. That's what we're doing here. So here we're saying open up a new file. Oh, that file doesn't exist yet? Well, make it. And when you make it, what I want you to do is to name it with the same name that it had before, file, except file, of course, is going to be filled by whatever file we're working with now at the time. Take that file name and stick a C underscore on the front of it. And here I've chosen C for cleaned. You could put whatever you want in here, but this is just going to make a new file name that has all the same characters as the previous file name. It's going to say adam01.txt, but now it's going to be C underscore adam01.txt for cleaned. And this A plus here is just going to allow us to write some information, some text to that new file. And here, this variable here, this is just telling Python what it should call this new file while it is within, while it is working with it. So it's saying, make a new file, give it this name here, and then put some stuff in it. Write something into that file. What are you going to write into that file? Write in the contents of this variable, new text. And you remember new text here we made by just joining all of the cleaned utterances together. Once you've done that, close that file down, and then close down the file that you have read into Python. This seems more complicated than it really is because I'm not explaining it that well, but just keep in mind that there are two files that are open here simultaneously. There is the file that we read into Python originally, the transcript, and remember we called that F when we read it in up here. Open this file as F. But then in the course of our script we have also made a new file which we have called new file. And both of these, at this point, right here, are open simultaneously. First we close the new one, then we close the old one, and then we start the loop all over again. Now as I'm sitting here, I can see that there is something missing from this file, from this script. Remember, what we wanted to do was to make a new folder called Adam Cleaned that had all the clean transcripts in it. And this command here should do that. But we haven't actually told Python to put all of these new cleaned files in that folder. So let's do that now. Let's just add that in here, because as the script is right now, it's going to make the new cleaned files and it's going to put them in the same folder that it's reading the old files from. That is, it's just going to put them right here in this folder, Adam. We don't want them there. We want them to go into the new folder. Luckily, the solution to this is very simple. We're just going to use this change directory command here a couple of times. So at the beginning, we changed directory to go to the folder that we wanted Python to read the files from. Now that it's done that, we want to here have it change the folder to the output folder. And when it's done with that, we want it to change the directory back to the input folder, like that. And finally, let's just get rid of this print command here, because we don't need to see the output every time it runs through this loop. That'll just make it take longer. All right, so we will press play on tape and see what happens. So we'll go to the desktop here, and aha! Sure enough, now it has created a new folder for us. It's called it Adam Cleaned, just like we asked it to. And if we take a look inside, here are a whole bunch of files. They all have the same file name as the original, except now they've had a C underscore added to them. So let's just take a look here. If we take a random file, we can take Adam 9 from the original transcript, and then we can take C Adam 9 and compare those. So here it looks like child says, "Dat, hand me a piece of paper," and we can see here's that same information in the original transcript. So this transcript here, just like this one, except only the utterances. Now, just as a finishing touch here, we do have some other folders. Of course, we have Sarah and Eve as well. So why don't we just go through and make this script even more general so that it's easy to apply to those other folders. So instead of specifying this path here directly, let's make a variable called pathin, a variable called pathout, and path in, well, right now it's Adam. Path out is Adam Cleaned, like so. And now let's just change this. We'll erase Adam, and instead we'll just say path in. Here we'll erase Adam and say plus path out. Down here, again, we'll also erase Adam. We'll add path out, and here path in. So now, instead of Adam, let's write Sarah here. And notice that we could have even gone another step and made Sarah a variable that we just plug in here. But for now, we'll just change it those two places. Actually, no, let's just do it for the sake of it. So let's make a variable here called child. And we could set child to be Adam. And now path in is going to be child. Path out will be child plus underscore cleaned. So we'll go and erase our folder here that we created, and we should be able to recreate it here quite easily. And sure enough, there it is. And now, with the addition of this last step, all we need to do is to change this one name here to Sarah, and then that will just propagate through the rest of the script. So child is Sarah, path in equals Sarah, path out equals Sarah plus cleaned. We're going to change the directory to Sarah because path in is child and child is Sarah. We're going to make a new directory because this path out is child plus cleaned, and child is path in, and Sarah is child, and so on and so forth down through the script. We have path in and path out down here as well. So let's give that a try. Now we have Sarah, and here are all of our cleaned Sarah texts. Also looks very nice. And as a final step, why don't we just do this for Eve as well. And there we go. Here's our Eve folder with all of our C underscore cleaned Eve texts. So that was a very long explanation of a very short script, but I hope it was useful, and I hope it can help you see the power of using loops to do things with files. If we look at the Sarah transcripts here, there are an awful lot of these. Just look at all those, and imagine if we wanted to go through each one by hand and copy and paste out the utterances into a new file. It would take us forever. We'd make mistakes. It would just be a horrible, horrible process. Instead, we have this script here that, again, with just a few lines of code, does all of that for us. And it does it for not only Sarah, but also Adam and Eve, with really no difficulty at all. All we have to do is just change the name of the child right here. So, loops are a good thing, and use them to your advantage. You can put anything you want in here. Here I've just written a loop that does a simple little cleaning process, but you can imagine lots of other things that you might want to do where you do the same thing to each file. And all you need to do is just put that code right here in this part of the loop.